I've been asked to come here this evening just to talk to you a little bit from a previous EngD student's perspective and how that has affected what I did then and how it affects what I do now, basically, and what the EngD has meant to me. As I was putting these slides together last night, my EngD was primarily in environmental technology and sustainability generally. I came across this quote from Lee Scott, who was the former CEO of Walmart, and I thought it was really pertinent to this evening's conversation, because when we started the EngD, and as Patrick has said, I was one of the first cohort in Surrey in 1993. Sustainability was much more focused on environment then. It really wasn't what it is now, and in terms of how I've seen things change from a sustainability professional's perspective, it's quite profound that where I was in 1993 and where we all were as a group of 1,500, sort of student doctorate program intakes was very different from where we are now. And really what we are now seeing actually is the whole thing coming full circle in terms of the vision of what the EngD was always going to be about, in terms of actually trying to drive business and really put sustainability at the heart of that. And I think what I'm seeing now, and particularly over the last about 4 to 5 years, is the commercial aspect and the competitive aspect of sustainability is coming to the forefront, and I think that has coincided with the drive of the EngD program from Surrey. So that's the industry's story towards sustainability. Patrick has given you Gareth's story to sustainability. I was at University of Surrey, and my project started with RTZ Borax, and then I switched to work with the BOC group. When I finished the EngD, I stayed on with BOC for a short while and then moved into consultancy. I was brought in as a senior consultant with ERM, based in Oxford, and then I was, I suppose, in some ways taken from there, or poached or persuaded, whatever you like to call it, to move with Panasonic, where I stayed for 8 years, and I'm now working with O2 back in the UK. But more to the point of this evening's talk, and I've only got 10 minutes to kind of take you through this, is what did the EngD do for me, and what did the EngD do for the sponsoring companies and the companies I've been involved with ever since. That's in essence what I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about this evening. Okay, let me talk with what I think the companies got out of it, and I think Nick gave a very good explanation of how that's worked for Renishaw. If I start from the top and way back in 1993, when I was 6, by the way, I'm 25 now, the sponsoring companies that I was working with were BOC and Borax. And I think at the time, what they really got, and the reason that attracted them in 1993, right at the very day one of the whole Parnaby doctorate, was access to sort of frontline academic thinking and access to a credible academic stakeholder. The work I was doing was at that stage on the little-known technique of life cycle assessment, or applying life cycle thinking to a whole process. It was very new at that stage, and the likes of Borax and BOC were trying to look into that and how they can actually use that technology, and they found in the University of Surrey a very laudable partner. I think at the other side of the equation, and I think this is equally important today as it was then, was the resourcing element of it. There were 15 of us as students coming into the EngD program, and in what was tough times right back in the early 1990s, they found us as students to be very attractive in terms of a resource to kind of work at the leading edge and have that thinking and have the flexibility to investigate new areas that really, within the day-to-day of the business, maybe they couldn't actually do. So when we came out of the EngD program in 1997, I think what we came out with was a couple of things. One was actually competency in what was a very new technique or a new area of thinking. I'm not talking just about myself in this instance, but also with the ability, as Nick has mentioned in his presentation, of basically being able to land on the job running, not having some form of PhD student or doctoral student who's been isolated from industry and has to learn the ropes within the industry context. It was people who were from day one being able to hit the ground running. And I think as James has talked about it, the other aspect of it was something that an individual and a person who can actually work in industry that sells that product, if you like, the EngD in its own right, Within Panasonic, we ended up recruiting EngDs of our own because really we saw the benefits of the program, and we're still kind of doing that within the context of O2. And then I think in terms of my current employer, and I think this actually stems not just into my current employer, but right the way through the whole of my career path is the sustainability network. I'll come back onto that into a minute, but I think that's a very important perspective, both from the students' perspective and indeed from the employers and the sponsoring companies' perspective. It drives expertise, it encourages expertise, it encourages cross-fertilization of ideas, and I think it's been extremely useful for us as an organization now in our own right, actually looking into working with academia generally. But I think more importantly, what did I get out of it? What did I get out of it at the start, and what do I get out of it now? I think if I talk about sort of three things that I got out of it in the 1990s when I joined the EngD program, one was a genuine work experience from day one. And I think in this day and age, we absolutely shouldn't underestimate that. One of the things that we do within O2 now is we have a £5 million community program that we're supporting British community over the next 3 years on. We've changed the focus of that quite recently because in our investigations and liaisons and dialogue with young people themselves, they're saying we need help. We've got 25% of young people in Spain unemployment. We've got a young people crisis right across Europe. In the UK, in our own backyard, we have 1 million young people out of employment, education or training. And when we look at the graduates that are coming out of our universities, they're saying to us, we can't get a job because we don't have experience, and we can't get experience because we don't have a job. And in essence, I think that was the situation when I came out of university in 1992, 1991, and what attracted me to the EngD. But I think if we look at our own situation now as British industry today, it's even more relevant now than it was back then. So that's something that I got 15, 20 years ago and still relevant today. The other element that I got out of this was in essence, I suppose, a great work ethic. One of the criticisms or rumblings we had in the jungle in 1993 when the EngD program first started off in Surrey was, you guys aren't really PhD students. This is a walk in the park. This is for people who couldn't hack a real PhD. It's a soft option. And I can tell you, and I think there's others in the audience this evening who were with me at Surrey, it wasn't a soft option. It was 5 years of bloody hard work. It was bringing in the academic rigor and still being able to deliver in a commercial context. And I think that took a lot of hard grind. It was great fun, but it was hard grind. And I think out of that challenge came one other thing, which was, and we've talked about it a little bit this afternoon and this evening as well, which was the ability to navigate and traverse both an academic landscape and a commercial one. We've heard James this evening saying that commerce and industry wanted to get access to frontline technology and state-of-the-art thinking and the intellectual rigor that academia can offer. The problem that we have, though, in industry is you sometimes find yourself talking at two different languages. And what the EngD program has delivered in buckets, I think, is actually a cohort of young graduates who come out into industry and they can actually communicate with the two different mindsets. That's what I got then. What have I got now, I think, is the next question. Well, I'm still using all the things that I learned in the EngD program. One of the great things that we had, and we've talked about it this evening, was the spectrum of education that students get in that context is massive. I remember sitting in lectures talking about environmental law and what that actually means. I use that absolutely every day. I remember sitting in lectures about financial accountancy and strategy and, if you like, elements of a rudimentary MBA, and we're still using those within my team and within the organization every day. And above all, the basic training and the basic philosophies that I was taught on the EngD program in the early 1990s in terms of life cycle thinking and applying life cycle assessment and looking at a holistic approach into your organization and into your industry and products. That's absolutely core at what we're doing within O2 right now. The other thing that we're still getting benefit from is that relationship with academia. We still very much value that, and we've heard that from a wide range of people across different spectrums this evening. One of the things that Patrick had talked about just as in his introduction to me was our publicly announced strategy on sustainability within O2. part of that will involve a panel of external experts that will critique our strategy as an organization, and we're very much hopeful that one of the professors from the University of Surrey will grace us with their presence on that panel. And the other thing that I still fundamentally value, and I think none of us in this room should ever underestimate, is that network. You know, when we started in 1993, there were 15 EngD students at the University of Surrey. We're still very much in contact with one another now. It's not just 15 anymore. It was 15 year on year and year. And we've now got a network of, close to 200 EngD students. We're still in contact with each other. We're still in contact with through the university and direct from a one-to-one basis, and the intellectual knowledge sharing and the cross-fertilization of ideas that comes from that has really spurred me in my career and really encouraged me over the last 15 years. And that, folks, is a whistle-stop tour through Gareth Rice and the EngD at the University of Surrey. Thank you very much.